about an hour. So
We have
I think
I try.
probably I'm just really interested in finding out more about sort of what people believe and sort of trying to understand what it is that draws people towards certain religions.
I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to study, and I think it's a great place to begin, because you're working on questions that people have thought about for thousands and thousands of years.
The thing that I love about philosophy is its preparedness not to take anything for granted.
Doing philosophy in the Middle Ages is studying theology, and so in order to understand that sort of theology, you have to have, it's very helpful to have a philosophical background.
At some universities, you have to do an ancient language, and I didn't want to have to do that. And you don't have to do that if you do philosophy and theology at Oxford.
I and other colleagues come from all sorts of different religious or non-religious backgrounds, and we welcome all kinds of students.
It's set up as a sort of, a very objective study of the discipline.
I'm not a Christian, and so I didn't want to focus in on Christianity completely, which I haven't had to do, but you do have to do a few Christian papers, and I thought, I'm not going to enjoy them, they're going to be really boring, they're just going to make me sit in a room and read the Bible and not going to get anything out of it. But actually, I was surprised by how much I did enjoy the papers.
The first paper that you take for prelims is the Gospel of Mark, and you're not looking at it as in terms of, what do we, how does this contribute to the liturgy of the church, or how does this, contribute to the, doctrine of the church, the Catholic Church, or anything, specifically like that. You're looking at it as, a historical Greek text.
Usually I would have 2 or 3 lectures a week, which each run for an hour, and then either 1 or 2 tutorials a week.
There are classes occasionally, like I go to biblical Greek class once a week, Greek translation.
It looks very empty in my diary, but it's actually not once you actually sit down and start doing the work.
I try to get at least 4 hours of reading done every day. 4 hours. I tend to sit in the library for 4 hours, but other people obviously, break it up into sections.
I suppose some people might say that chapel choir is related to theology, which I suppose it is because it's a Christian choir. So I do that, that's my main extracurricular thing.
Oxford is a wonderful place for resources in theology, as should be expected from a medieval town, of course.
We have a much larger number of philosophers here in Oxford than we do anywhere else in the country.
The library is the #1 facility. We have a very nice new philosophy and theology faculty library.
It's nice to have your whole course in one place. I'm very lucky that they've put the theology and philosophy libraries together now. When you come and they say the college library is 24 hours, all the parents go, you'll never use it. You're thinking, I'll never be up at 2 o'clock writing an essay. Like, that just won't happen, because I think at A level you're doing a usual timetable because you have to get up for school in the morning. But trust me, you will use the 24-hour library.
I think it's important that people recognise that the way we teach is quite distinctive there and puts people on the spot rather a lot. If that sounds someone's idea of heaven, then this is the very best place to come and study philosophy.
I sort of came into it not really knowing very much about basically not knowing anything at all about the tutorial system.
No one really thinks about it. I hadn't thought about it at all before I arrived. I thought, I was very focused on making friends and I knew that I was going to have to do work, but I'd never actually thought about how scary it was going to have to be to sit down in front of one other person and just talk about something that you didn't really know very much about and they knew a lot about.
We're very concerned that our undergraduates have their own reactions, their own arguments. It's about their work. The tutorial is about what they think, about what they want to argue, and about what they think is right and wrong.
You learn very quickly when you're writing an essay that you can't get away with making, generalizations about something. You have to be quite specific in what you're writing and thinking about, especially in philosophy.
often you will find that you'll be thinking about both topics at the same time, and that sort of answers that you've given in philosophy tutorials will suddenly come up in theology, and you think, oh, okay, like they are actually interacting with one another.
On public television in the US, we have Inspector Morse and Inspector Lewis, and I saw Oxford and I thought, geez, that looks like a really neat place. I'd sort of like to study there.
I wanted somewhere that would work me hard. I didn't want to be bored at university. And so that really made me think, where can I go that I'm going to have to do a lot of work, I'm going to be motivated to try hard.
What we don't do in an interview is to start with a question that we think the applicant will already have some good things to say about, and therefore we can ask the question and then a prepared speech will follow. Often if we think we're getting a prepared speech, we'll actually ask a different question.
Rather than just saying sort of, what philosophers are you interested in, or what does Kant say about this, or what does Hume say about this, it's more hands-on tasks. So they would give you sort of some ambiguous statements and say, how are they ambiguous? Can you tell me?
It will probably be not the person who knows the most about philosophy who's the best applicant, but the person who's been most philosophical, even in the other subjects that they've studied.
Personal statements have become very formulaic. Students get training in schools how to do interviews, but really all we want to find out is what makes this particular candidate tick.
We hope that every applicant will have read a bit about philosophy and be sufficiently knowledgeable and well motivated to know that philosophy is at least something they should be exploring. But we don't expect them to have a lot of knowledge of what great philosophers have said, and we don't expect them to come with 15 key arguments in place ready to deploy in their interview or anything of that sort.
I really didn't know anything about theology or philosophy, and I was a little worried because other people were telling me, well, I've studied this, that, and the other thing, and here I am.
I was so excited. I remember I didn't know sort of who to tell first. I wanted to like celebrate with everyone.
A theology degree from Oxford is, I think, both a subject education and a general education, and that means that people go on to do a very wide variety of things.
You'll be trained very rigorously in analytical and conceptual thinking in ways that should make you a very good candidate for a very wide range of careers.
Some students will actually go on and become academics, and they will study philosophy at a higher level, and it will become their own profession. But that is a tiny, tiny minority of our undergraduates. Most of them, although their interest in philosophy will have been piqued, and although they will almost certainly sustain that interest through the rest of their lives, will go on to do something professionally which doesn't directly involve philosophy at all.
I think personally that I would like to, do a bit more study, stay around for a bit longer.
I think that I want to do a law conversion at the moment and go into law.
I'm contemplating a religious life of some sort. I don't know if it will be the priesthood or, living in a monastic order or something like that.
And it's a great stimulation to be able to see how some reading that one suggested to an undergraduate has affected their thinking, maybe positively, maybe negatively, maybe sometimes it's negative, and maybe it's something that I've written that has affected their thinking negatively, and they come and they tell me why I'm wrong. And perhaps sometimes I have to revise my views, and perhaps sometimes I have to defend myself. But I think that sense of interaction and of discussion, of being put on the spot all the time, that's, I think, what I love most about it.